Hello, 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 and welcome to Nursing News You Can Use Live at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, your host, and I want to say thank you for tuning in on this Wednesday, July the 10th, 2024. Woo! Can you believe it? It's already July, and it is a beautiful day outside. The sun is out now, and it looks gorgeous. Here's our affirmation for today. I am comfortable with my power in my daily interactions because my power comes from my heart. It's always loving, gentle, and just. I am comfortable with my power in my daily interactions because my power comes from my heart. It is always loving, gentle, and just. That is from the Louise Hay calendar for 2024. Okay, let's go ahead and get into our first news article for today. And then we've got some announcements that we'll be having it towards the end. Okay, this is coming out from the state of Ohio in the Ohio Capital Journal. Checking in on Ohio nursing legislation as lawmakers break for summer recess. Shortly before Ohio lawmakers left for summer recess, the House passed a bill aimed at reducing violence in healthcare settings. To the Ohio Nurses Association, it's an important step toward improving safety. It also doesn't address what the nurses union sees as a much greater threat: lack of adequate staffing. A measure to address staffing levels faces significant pushback from the Ohio Hospital Association and has yet to clear its House committee. At least so far, there are no sessions on the Ohio House calendar for the remaining of the year. Both measures would also need to get a vote in the Ohio State Senate, which is on recess until after the November election. So that may mean that you might want to, Ohio nurses, kind of give a little nudge to your state senators and saying, hey, we want you to take this up. You want our vote. You're going to look at these nursing initiatives that we have here. So House Bill 452, violence prevention. It was sponsored by Representative Andrea White, a Republican for Kettering. Described the physical and mental toll violence takes on the healthcare workers. She says this has been something on the rise for the past 10 years. And nationally, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that workers in healthcare and social service industries experience the highest rates of injuries caused by workplace violence and are 5 times as likely to get injured at work than the overall workforce. So, in a press release, the ONA praised lawmakers for passing the legislation. The organization says this legislation represents an important initial move toward addressing the violence that Ohio nurses and health professionals face daily. We commend the General Assembly for recognizing this critical issue. Notably, although the ONA backed the measure, they're encouraged lawmakers to institute harsher penalties when individuals assault healthcare workers with bodily fluids. That would have mirrored punishment for assaulting law enforcement officers, but lawmakers didn't amend those provisions into the bill. And the measure didn't pass without pushback. State Representative Angie King, Republican for Salina, expressed concerns about the potential costs for rural hospitals and, quote, unintended consequences. She noted aggressive behavior isn't defined and asked about people seeking alternative treatments for themselves and family members during the COVID-19 pandemic. Would these individuals who begged, pleaded, and perhaps raised their voices be deemed aggressive? Well, it depends on how aggressive you would be. And as a person in healthcare, there's a way for you to state your case without getting into somebody's physical space, threatening bodily harm. I think that maybe they should define aggression a little bit more. But yeah, I kind of think that, to me, that's a little bit disingenuous, in my opinion, of a sentiment there, because we know just because you raise your voice doesn't necessarily make you a threat. And we are trained in de-escalation techniques. But if you act on those threats, then that to me seems to be a problem. And so I'm hoping that this is what this would help. Also, House Bill 285, staffing mandates. They're still working on the proposal, establishing minimum staffing guidelines, but the time isn't exactly on their side. The committee tasked with considering the bill has yet to hold hearings with proponents or opponents. In a letter, the House Speaker in May, Ohio hospital and business interests criticized the idea as a crippling administrative burden as hospitals face a major labor shortage. Well, the reason why you face a labor shortage is because you won't hire enough people to help combat the labor shortage. I'm sorry, but what has happened is that it's affecting your bottom line. Let's just be honest here. The healthcare costs are what you're saying. You really want to, a lot of these hospitals are owned by private equity, and they want to make sure that they're doing right by their shareholders, which they would, except you can't do that in healthcare. It has to be focused on what's safe for the patients and safe for the staff. And ultimately, that to me would improve your bottom line, because then you're not losing staff and having to retrain staff over and over again. So make it make sense, folks. Make it make sense. All right, let's move on to our next story. This story from Medscape Medical News, confronting healthcare disinformation on social media. And I have to say this as a person who is on social media and actively helping in capacity in on social media, help spreading health information and things like that. I try to use reputable sources for everything that I do. And this is why I wanted to share this. It says, so more than 90% of internet users are active on social media, which has had 4.76 billion users worldwide, in January of 2023. The digital revolution has reshaped the news landscape and changed how users interact with information. Social media has fostered an active relationship with the media, including the ability to interact directly with content presented. It has also augmented media's ability to reach a large audience with tight deadlines. These developments suggest that social media can be a useful tool in everyday medical practice for professionals and patients, but social media also can spread misinformation, as what happened during the pandemic. So I have to say, one of the things that I've noticed is that everybody can create their own platform and spout what they believe to be true. And it used to be that you would only find those things on subreddits or on different servers. But now it's becoming mainstream, and then everybody can get on there and say whatever they want to, and they're not held accountable for making sure that their information is accurate and true. And so that is a very big concern. And that's one of the things that when I'm talking to someone and they're asking me questions in a role, in my professional role, when I'm doing these things, I make sure that I look at professional websites and that they have evidence for what they're saying. And, I don't want to just choose any Joe Schmo's blog because they can say whatever they want to. I mean, there'd be somebody who could say, yes, the color green is red, and adamantly believe it. And, how do you dispute those things? You have to look at the source and the evidence and the science behind it. And that's part of the problem. People can have one experience. You're one person with an outlier, have one experience, and now you're trying to extrapolate that to everyone on the planet, and that is very dangerous to do. So it goes on to say, while social media offers public health organizations the opportunity to inform and engage the public, it also raises concerns about misinformation and the difficulty of measuring its effect on health behavior. Although some studies have observed correlations between exposure to misinformation on social media and levels of adherence to vaccination campaigns, establishing a causal link is complex. As the authors emphasize, despite the importance of the effect of social media and misinformation on people's behavior and the broad hypotheses within public and political debates, the current state of the art cannot provide definitive conclusions on clear causal association between social media and health behavior. So they can't definitively say it affects your health behavior. But anecdotally, it does seem to do so. So studies often rely on self-reported data, which may not accurately reflect real behaviors, and struggle to isolate the effect of social media from other external influences. Moreover, many studies primarily focus on Western countries, limiting the generalization or generalizability, of the results to other cultural and geographical conditions. So if you want to read more of this story, please go on over to Medscape. This is a very interesting perspective. And then it says, um, a doctor's role. I find this interesting. It says all the information thus allows for identifying the needs that the population expresses, and that could push a patient to turn elsewhere towards sources that provide answers, even if of dubious quality or extremely oversimplified. The doctor can enter this landscape by trying to understand even the data provided by institutions, what needs the patients are trying to fill, and what drives them to seek elsewhere, and to look for a reference community that offers a relevant confirmations. And so I have to say, I'm in one particular group and a community, and I just find it fascinating, again, where people will say, well, this worked for me, which is fine, but then they're trying to make sure that everybody adheres to what seems to work for them, and bashing the people who don't agree with what they're doing. And so I just have to say, we have to be very careful about where we get this information. They're also talking about misinformation versus disinformation. So the rapid spread of false or misleading information on social media can undermine trust in healthcare institutions and negatively influence a health related behaviors. Zollo and colleagues, in fact, speak of misinformation in their discussion, not disinformation. In English, a distinction is made between misinformation and disinformation, a distinction that we are also adopting in Italian. When we talk about misinformation, we mean information that is generally false, inaccurate, or misleading, but is not but has not been created with the intention to harm, an intention that is present in disinformation. So again, if you're going to be getting your information from social media, make sure you get it from a credible source. Don't just take everything for granted, something you've seen on social media platforms. Make sure you do your due diligence. All right, this article is coming from Go Local Pro PRV News. And it says, RI nursing home fined and cited for operating facility with unlicensed nursing assistants. And when I bring stories like this out to light, I'm not just doing them from the point of being sensational and saying, oh, this is horrible, et cetera, et cetera. I'm doing this from the point of education, because I want you to understand how these things happen and where some of this stuff falls, and so that people will not do the same thing. So, as one of Rhode Island's youngest and most experienced nursing home administrators has been disciplined by the Rhode Island Department of Health. In January of 2023, Grace Barker Health, a skilled nursing, short-term rehabilitation, assisted living, and adult health provider located in Warren, announced that Benjamin Lascolt was promoted to administrator. The announcement was made by Mark and Mary Beth Lascolt, co-owners of Grace Barker Health. So basically what we're seeing here is that, okay, there's a little bit of nepotism. It sounds like they hired their son or whoever to work for them. Okay, that's fine. The facility has 86 beds. However, just months later, the nursing home and Benjamin Lescott was investigated by RIDOH and federal regulators, who hit the nursing home with a fine of more than $114,000. Of course, they said it's not Grace Barker's Health first time being penalized by federal regulators. The RIDOH announced this week that it has reprimanded Lescott for having employees without valid licenses working at the facility. Now, I want to say this. So this is against his nursing home administrator's license, which apparently, and I did not know this until recently, is kind of a big deal, because that kind of sticks with you if you've had these types of reprimands. So on or about November the 27th of 2023, the state received a complaint alleging that the respondent was serving as the administrator of a long-term care facility that had 9 nursing assistants working the facility without a valid license. Grace Barker said at age 26, Mr. Lescott is one of the youngest, most experienced administrators in the U.S. to lead an elder care organization. He grew up in the family business and most recently served in the capacity of assistant administrator. In the enforcement action, the state wrote, on January 29, 2024, the board reviewed the allegation and relevant evidence, including your response to the complaint, The state, after review and in conjunction with a recommendation by the board, determined that the respondent failed to conform to minimum standards of acceptable and prevailing practice of nursing home administration by their actions. So they basically said the conduct constitute unprofessional conduct as defined by Rhode Island law. So Go Local reached out to Lescault, who in a comment said, "The one on my license, I don't have anything else with that." And I guess they Go Local asked, so there were 9 unlicensed nursing assistants at the facility that you're aware of or not aware of? And he responded, "That's a good question. I'll have to talk to my lawyer about that." And so there has been no follow-up to the questions. I'm saying this because I want you to understand the nature of the penalty. So again, this is someone who's worked for the industry for a long time, and seeing as he had been in the industry and has a family history and all that, and according to this article, so he grew up pulling bingo numbers and volunteering, I guess, in the facilities and things like that. So here are some of the deficiencies, because I want you to understand what they are and how this happened. So it says, during a surveyor interview at approximately 2:30 p.m. with the administrator, he indicated that the facility is in need of a better system to keep track of their employees' licenses. Furthermore, he acknowledged that the above-mentioned staff members did not hold active NA licenses, including staff C, who assisted the resident during the incident. So I'm not sure what the incident was, but they were fined for deficiencies. Additionally, he could not provide evidence that the facility was administered in a manner that enables it to use its resources effectively and efficiently to attain or maintain the highest practicable physical, mental, and psychosocial well-being of each resident. So I want to talk about these deficiencies, these F tags as we call them. So administration deficiency, that's F tag 835, failure to administer the facility in a manner that enables it to use its resources effectively and efficiently. Nursing and physician services deficiency, that's F728. Failure to ensure the nurses' aides who have worked more than 4 months are trained and competent, and nurse aides who have worked less than 4 months are enrolled in appropriate training. And so my question with all this is like, who is your director of nursing? And wouldn't they have, at the bare minimum, they should have pulled to see that they were listed on the registry. But I digress. Resident assessment and care planning deficiency, F658. So failure to ensure services provided by the nursing facility met professional standards of quality. And quality of life and care deficiency, F0689. Failure to ensure that a nursing home is free from accidents, hazards, and provides adequate supervision to prevent accidents. So I wanted to bring those up because as we are training and trying to get new staffing in, the new staffing levels, you have to make sure that the people are qualified. So those nurses out there that are becoming the director of nurses and administrators and things like that, be aware of those things. Go onto your nurse aid registry and pull them up and make sure you do a check and go through everybody's employee file. Put ticklers in there. There should be a system in place to do that. If you need help developing the system, let me know. The systems and processes are one of the things that I excel in. And so there should be in your employee file, if you use something like any type of software, oftentimes they'll have something that says when a training has to be redone or something like that. So do that. Okay. All right, let's get to this next story here. It's coming out of Chicago, ABC 7 Chicago. And it says Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the Health Care Protection Act on Wednesday morning. The legislation aims to make health care more accessible by curbing predatory insurance practices. Excuse me. Pritzker signed the act at the Rush Professional Building. It says for thousands of Illinoisans, the reforms in this bill will mean the difference between suffering with a curable health condition and getting the care that they need in a timely manner. For some, this bill could quite literally save their lives, The bill also limits the ability of insurance companies to deny coverage. During the press conference, doctors and politicians brought up mental health crisis happening in the country among youth. So, just to let you know, just a little bit of breaking news there. That was signed. If you're in Illinois and that's you have comments on that, let me know what's happening because I love to hear about it. Okay, here's our next story, and then we're going to take a brief break. Healthcare leaders start caring about your employees, not just the patients. Okay, this is an opinion piece in Forbes. And it says, ask anyone why they went into healthcare, and you'll likely hear that they were at least partly, if not fully, motivated by a desire to help people. In my experience, that holds true whether you're a caregiver or an administrator. Yet, just because a profession is centered around caring and filled with caregivers doesn't mean employees feel cared for. This article is the second in a 14-part weekly series that they're doing on sharing insights from the 2024 Healthcare in the Age of Personalization Summit. So let's get into some of the information that she provides here. I just find this quite interesting. So, in the first article, she says she mentioned that the threat of shortages of both physicians and nurses in the industry, even as more people than ever need care, healthcare organizations will also have increasing number of management roles to fill over the next decade. Employment of medical and health services managers is projected to grow from 28% from 2022 to 2032, much faster than the average for all occupations at 3%. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Also, it says that people know that they can no longer count on an employer for their long-term financial sustainability through their working years and retirement. So individual loyalty is to their own career rather than to any one employer. As a result, according to the RBC Capital Markets report linked above, workers are demanding more control over their careers, the work that they are doing when they work, and the environment in which they work. Further in the article, it says, since we have multi-generational workplaces in healthcare, I asked to share advice for how we can navigate and perhaps benefit from those differences in thought, suggestions that we take advantage of the fresh perspectives that the different generations bring to the organization. So the person's quoted saying, I would say to emerging leaders, be courageous, be brave, and speak up. Anytime we onboard a new employee, I've always told them to please share new ideas, fresh ideas, because we're stuck in ruts of standardization where we've been doing things for years and we don't know why until a new employee comes in and asks, why do we do this? So she said she recently heard this word gross. Said get rid of stupid stuff, and it just really stuck with me as we try to move from standardization to more personalization, what really adds value, and getting rid of everything else. But there are obstacles, and sometimes one of those obstacles is us. Recently, I was training emergency leaders and emerging leaders, and I said to the group, I bet you have all felt suppressed over the years and you've given up challenging the status quo because you realized that you weren't getting anywhere, even though you made all the efforts to help the organization do what's right. There was silence in the room until someone said, how did you know that? So, yeah, again, we see that all the time. And so this is a very interesting article. Please read the full article. I don't have time to get into it. You can head on over to Forbes and get into that. So let's go ahead and take our brief break. Are you looking for basic life support CPR classes? Teachers, do you need to get your CPR requirement completed for your certification renewal? Nursing students, want to get a jump start on preparing for clinicals? Healthcare workers, do you need to renew your certification for your employer? Baxter Professional Services Health Education has what you need. Friends and Family CPR is available for anyone who wants to learn. Register today at Baxter Professional Services HealthEducation.com. All right, let's get into our next story. And this is actually coming from another part of the world. And this is a story that happened on, and I thought it was interesting. So if you're watching us or tuning in from India, it's about you. So India's first VR nurse training lab opens. It serves as a center of excellence that extends access to nursing skills training to schools around. I'm not going to say that, but I think it's Gujarat. I do not know how to pronounce it, and I apologize. But I'm excited about it. So it says a nursing training facility in India has recently opened, which could be the first to be augmented by virtual reality technology. Healthcare VR developer Medisim VR partnered with Kasim Viharjila, I'm sorry, I'm terrible at this, hospital, to establish the virtual reality health lab. So located at the 300-bed multi-specialty hospital in Ahmedabad, a city in the western state in India. The Nursing Skill Training Center is equipped with VR simulators that provide immersive, real-world-like environment for practicing medical procedures and developing clinical skills. So in an interview, Ribdi Biad, business development head at the Medicine VR, shared that the training laboratory features a comprehensive, curated module library of essential skills endorsed by the Medical Council of India, the United Kingdom's General Medical Council, and the American Medical Council. We cover essential skills required for all healthcare providers, including basic patient care skills such as assessing vital signs, proper wound care techniques, insertion of catheters, IV cannulas, and many more. So I just wanted to say congratulations, and I think that's great. And I'd like to hear about adding things into the nursing profession. And so the article further says that recent pandemic saw nursing education institutions around Asia increasingly adopt VR technology to continue conducting classes while meeting safety protocols. In Hong Kong, for example, the Hong Kong Polytechnic University developed a VR-based virtual hospital learning system, a first of its kind in the city, that simulates real-life hospital ward scenarios in a game format. Now, wait a minute. How cool would that be to go to nursing school and you get to play a video game about stuff that, real life simulation? I think that would be awesome. I said, we need to do more of that. I would play that game. I would be in on that game. So, so I just want to say there's more technology and innovation coming in healthcare, and I'm excited about it. Okay, here's another article. And again, I'm not going to read all of this, but this is one of those things that I like to bring up, not because I'm picking on nursing homes or picking on a particular industry, but I want people to know, because I've seen it done and I've seen nurses do these things, why it's not a good idea and what could happen. So this is from the Bay Area News Group, and it says, Oakland nursing home allegedly drugged resident to stop his wandering. Death came soon. Okay. Alonda Williams, a fixture for years selling the Street Spirit newspaper outside the Berkeley Bowl supermarket on Oregon Street, was admitted to Oakland nursing home Brookdale Wellness in December of 22. Less than a month later, he was dead at age 64. Now his daughter is suing the facility on Fruitville Avenue and its owner, claiming the drugs used to keep Williams from wandering contributed to his death. The Berkeley native suffered from leukemia and mild cognitive impairment and needed help with daily living and fall prevention, according to the lawsuit filed last month in Alameda County Superior Court by his daughter, Kayomi Williams. Brookdale staff knew Williams was prone to wandering and said he wanted to get out of the facility. 5 days after he was admitted, Williams left the building, according to the lawsuit. His daughter was called and found him in a nearby crosswalk. Rexnitz, who owns numerous nursing homes in California, could not immediately be reached for comment. Instead of creating a plan to keep Williams from leaving and protect him from falling, Brookdale staff began using the sedative Ativan and the powerful painkiller morphine to keep him a prisoner that required chemical restraints. Okay, so here's where it can get into a sticky situation. So, nurses, the Ativan can be given, the morphine can be given if the prescriber has given specific parameters for doing it. You can't just give it for your convenience. That's called a chemical restraint. You can't do that. So I had a case where a nurse gave the medication was for seizures. It was like Ativan given for seizures and for anxiety, and the nurse gave it out of it was for seizures. The nurse gave it for her anxiety, and it did not have a clear indication for that. It has an indication, but that was not what it was ordered for. So that was a breach in the standard of care. So in order to give that, she would have to call the prescriber, the physician and nurse practitioner, and say, hey, they have this available. Can I give it for this? And can I rewrite the order to say for anxiety or sleep? Or you see what I'm saying? That keeps you out of trouble. And we also know that you really need to be careful when you're mixing powerful opiates with benzodiazepines. But I digress. So anyway, so facility staff allegedly overworked and undertrained to keep costs low and profits high. And this is again what they're saying. Routinely administered morphine and Ativan to Williams without consulting his doctor as required under state regulations. So my question is, why did he have morphine and Ativan anyway? You know, I'm like, if he was already a fall risk and you're giving him medications that could cause him to fall, I'm confused. So the medications, of course, can cause disorientation, confusion, loss of balance, falls. I guess they list leukemia and cardiac arrest as cause of death. But a lawyer representing the daughter says the case goes to trial. Doctors specializing in care for elderly will testify that dosing him with morphine and Ativan was a substantial contributing factor to the death. So we'll see. We'll see what happens at the trial. But again, my question is, if they didn't have the order to do it, don't do it. This is very dangerous practices. You cannot medicate someone for staff convenience. I'm going to say it again. You cannot medicate someone for staff convenience. There has to be a clear indication as to why they need that medication. Okay, let's go on to Canada. This is from Medscape Medical News again. I thought this was a little bit interesting. So those of you in Canada who are watching, you might want to pay attention. This just came out today. Ontario considers expanding nurses' scope of practice. In late June, the Ontario government announced that it is consulting with the College of Nurses of Ontario, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, on expanding the scope of practice for nurse practitioners. The changes are being considered as one measure to help address the critical shortage of primary care in the province. Ontario currently has more than 5,000 nurse practitioners. While nurses' scope of practice varies across provinces, nurse practitioners can already diagnose, refer patients to specialists, and prescribe medication in Ontario and other provinces. The proposed changes include allowing nurse practitioners to apply a defibrillator and cardiac pacemaker therapy, perform electrocoagulation to remove skin tags and treat lesions, and sign blood testing forms for specific infectious diseases. The government is also considering making changes to end-of-life care by allowing nurse practitioners to certify death in all circumstances or any registered nurse to certify an expected death, such as during palliative care. By leveraging the full extent of our training and expertise, nurse practitioners can play a crucial role in ensuring a more integrated health system. These proposed changes will lead to faster care, better outcomes, and a more efficient healthcare system. Michelle Acorn, DNP, NP, CEO of the Nurse Practitioners Association of Ontario, told Medscape Medical News. Nurse practitioners gained the authority to prescribe controlled substances in 2017 and to order CT and MRI scans in 2022. The ability to prescribe certain medications was also expanded to all registered nurses in 2023. Yet nurse practitioners still represent an untapped resource right now, Acorn added. Now that nurses can perform these key tasks, the new changes are just a few gaps that need to be closed right now to ensure that they are fully optimized and integrating into the Ontario health system. So, ACORN believes that allowing nurses to certify mental health forms is particularly important. We absolutely have the knowledge, skills, and judgment to do this. Also, further on, of course, there's always doctors who don't agree. I'm not even about to read that. You already know it. You can read it. But I'm going on to be interested in this. It says allowing nurses to certify death could be particularly beneficial, according to Tammy O'Rourke, MP, PhD, assistant professor at Athabasca University, Athabasca, Alberta, Canada, who supports the proposed changes. Currently, physicians are brought in to sign the death certificate, which can be distressing to families during their loss. There's no legal requirement that death be pronounced by a physician, only that the paperwork be done by a physician. And they bill the Ontario Health Insurance Plan about $70 for that. While nurse practitioners now perform many of the same services as physicians, they cannot bill in the same fee-for-service model and are typically paid less than doctors, O'Rourke noted. The discrepancy has caused some nurses to begin private clinics where patients pay out of pocket for primary care services, a practice that has generated controversy. O'Rourke worked in one nurse-led private clinic in Belleville, Ontario from 2010 to 2014. Alternative reimbursement models are the best option, she said, but all providers should be paid the same for providing the same services. Whether private clinics are a viable solution, changing the remuneration system may help improve access to care. Patrick O'Byrne, RNEC, PhD, professor of nursing at the University of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. O'Byrne does not support private clinics as a system-level intervention, though he does not criticize the nurses who work in them. But he believes that nurse practitioners would benefit from direct access to fee schedules and billing. So there's more to this story. I'm just going to say, hey, look into it if you're in Canada. What do you got to say about this? Because I find that interesting in the scope of practice that differs in Canada as well. And we have the similar issues in the U.S. with nurse practitioners, as our scope of practice can change drastically from state to state as well. Okay. Here's our next article. It says researchers call for ethical guidance on the use of AI in healthcare. So, in a recent article published by MPG Digital Magazine, researchers investigated the ethical implications of deploying large language models, or LLMs, in healthcare through a systematic review. The conclusions include that while LLMs offer significant advantages, such as enhanced data analysis and decision support, persistent ethical concerns regarding fairness, bias, transparency, and privacy underscore the necessity for defined ethical guidelines and human oversight in their application. So here's some of the things that they looked at. So, however, along with their potential benefits, concerns have emerged regarding the ethical implications. Previous research has highlighted risks such as dissemination of inaccurate medical information, privacy breaches, and the perpetuation of biases based on gender, culture, or race. So what do you guys think? There's more to this article. I don't have time to read all of it, but there's more. So let me know what you think about the idea of use of AI in healthcare, because this, again, is another fascinating topic for me and something I've been interested in seeing what we're going to be doing with this, because it's coming, whether we want to or not. It's coming. All right, here's another article. This is from NPR, and it says, a nursing home's overnight closure may have endangered residents. Is a fine the only penalty? And this just happened to fall into my box the other day, and I wanted to share this. So Star Bradford's mother, who has dementia, had lived at Northview Village for decades. So we had talked about Northview Village previously. So when the University Center was scrolling University City resident was scrolling through Facebook in December. She recognized a building in the background of a live stream video. At first, I was like, wait, that looks like my mom's nursing home. Then I'm like, that is her nursing home. The residents, where did they get moved to? Nobody had an answer. Public attention focused on a chaotic scene unfolding at the North St. Louis nursing home, one of the largest in the state. As the sun went down on December 15th, health workers from other facilities had begun hastily evacuating the facility's 174 residents. The rush closure continued into the early morning, according to a state report that recounted the facility's final hours. And so we have reported on the closing of this facility previously. So I wanted to give this as kind of an update. NPR's done a great job of following this. So as you know, they're very rushed. People didn't know where they're going. Residents didn't know where they're going. The stuff was left. A lot of the stuff was looted. Horrible situation. So the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services officials later said the closure jeopardized the health and safety of Northview's residents and staff. It drew the ire of politicians and activists for nursing home residents who called for investigations into the owners and the operators of the North St. Louis home and criticized the proliferation of facilities owned by out-of-state business interests. But so far, it appears that the only punishment has been a $56,000 fine from the Federal Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Bradford soon found her mother had been moved to another St. Louis facility in Grand Center. Other families didn't find their relatives for days. Police also found one person with schizophrenia who walked away during the closure weeks later at a restaurant about a mile from the closed facility. And as you can see there, I can show this here. I'm going to show you this picture. Share screen real quick. I just want you to see this. So you see this picture, you can see where things were just kind of left in disarray. It says cabinets, wheelchairs, and debris were strewn about the nursing home, formerly the largest in St. Louis. Then you see that the place, I guess, was condemned now. It's been deemed unsafe. Horrible. So it says a state report detailing Northview's final hours explained facility managers shut the home down after its owners could not make payroll for their employees. Now, I understand that, but couldn't you come up with a better process? I mean, you knew it was coming for weeks. I just don't get it. So two families, the Rothners and the Sousas, own the majority of Northview Village, partly through trust, according to CBS documents. Directors Lorraine and Mark Sousa and Eric Rothner did not respond to requests for interviews. The shutdown upset family members of the residents, obviously. And they said the St. Louis Area Aging, the City Health Department Mental Health Board, and other organizations quickly convened and approved funding for wellness checks and to replace residents' belongings. It says case managers are trying to provide just simple personal care items like sweatpants, like shoes, a jacket, combs for their hair. I mean, the items the people were requesting were huge items overall. Most of it was, I need clothing, I need undergarments. I was taken out without any shoes on. Volunteers from Voice, a local ombudsman program for long-term care facilities, visited Northview after facility closed. They said there were quilts still in the bed and shoes neatly lined up as if the residents expected they were going to come back soon. Lawyers for Northview said in court documents that the operators of the facility could not have foreseen the closure since it was a result of employees walking off the job. A former employee sued, claiming the closure violated federal workplace laws. They only announced a delay of funds, not that the facility was to be shut down, Northview's lawyers wrote. The shutdown occurred as a direct impact of the looting and the rioting of employees. Industry Watchdog says it's unlikely that the owners didn't know about the financial crisis facing the facility. Yeah. So according to Richard Mollett, who is executive director of Long-Term Care Community Coalition, says this is not a hamburger stand where someday people stop showing up. This is a nursing home that has been in operation for many years, has had steady stream of funds, and you know the money is coming in. There's just no excuse for closing in this way. So CMS issued a fine of $56,000, citing unsafe evacuation, administration problems, and the facility's failure to keep residents safe. But that fine isn't enough to hold nursing homes accountable, said Sam Brooks, public policy director. He said that's nothing to them, that's the cost of doing business. And that is true. Brooks is also frustrated with the federal CMS regulators. They could take additional steps, not allowing them to license or payment denials for Medicare and Medicaid, but they continue to tolerate it. So we will see what happens. There's more to this story. Again, NPR did a great job on this on St. Louis Public Radio on this. So if you want to check that out, go ahead on over there to that story as well. Okay, here's another update in the ongoing saga of Steward Healthcare. This is from the Enterprise, not the ship from Star Trek, though. Okay, so sorry, I had a little Star Trek joke. So as a new deadline looms, bids looms for Steward Healthcare to sell its 8 Massachusetts hospitals, including Good Samaritan in Brockton, Morton in Taunton, and St. Anne's in Fall River. The state senators urged the companies who own the facility's real estate to sweeten the deal for prospective buyers. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Edward Markey, both Democrats, asked executives of Medical Properties Trust and Marquardt Infrastructure Partners to offer long-term reductions in lease payments, early termination leases, and other concessions to ensure that new operators can be found to keep Steward's Massachusetts hospitals open and viable. The senator's concerns come amid worries that buyers won't come forward, leaving residents who rely on the hospitals and the people who work at them in limbo. Last month, Steward pushed back its bid deadline for Steward's 9 Massachusetts hospitals to July 15th. According to court documents filed by the Boston-born but now Dallas-based company. The ability of these hospitals to emerge from bankruptcy under new ownership with stable finances will represent a significant public health victory for these communities, allowing their dedicated workers to continue to provide needed healthcare services. The hospitals were up for sale, but Steward sold the buildings themselves and the land on which they sit back on in 2016. The Massachusetts properties fetched $1.25 billion. Until recently, Steward paid rent to the new owners before the troubled for-profit company stopped being able to pay rent and months later declared bankruptcy. So what they did, they bought the buildings, they bought the land, and they bought the hospital as an entity. Then they sold the land and they sold the hospital building. So now they can charge the hospital entity rent. So that's how it happened. So the senator said Steward's lease agreements with MPT and MIP make up the vast majority of Steward's debt and present an ongoing threat to the operations of the hospitals. So again, there's more going on. There's watchdogs for the state have been monitoring Steward facilities. The Commonwealth has also a dedicated phone line for patients or workers if they have complaints. That number is 617-468-2189 or toll free 833-305-2070. So we'll be keeping an eye on what's happening with Steward Healthcare, and as this continues to unfold, we will let you know. We're going to take our last break before we get on to our Nurses Making a Difference. Bullying, poor staffing, stagnant wages, no work-life balance. Stop being eaten alive. Find your joy, strength, and happiness. Become the leader you are always meant to be. Nurse entrepreneurs are using your skills to launch successful businesses every day. Make your dreams come true. Join the Nurse Shark Academy and come feel the sun at the nursesharkacademy.biz. Okay, let's get into our Nurses Making a Difference segment. I'm very excited about this. Before we do, yes, let's get into this. So this is coming from, remember we had the incident where the person drove his car into the front of a nursing home. We reported that out of Florida. Well, there's a follow-up to this, and it's a celebration of valor reception that was held in honor for the individuals who protected staff and patients at Aspire at Palma Sola Bay after an armed man crashed into the front entrance. The incident took place back in May 24th of this year. This is coming from Channel 8 and NBC Channel 8. So deputies said after crashing into the building, Sean Francis Calicutty, 40, fired his weapon at an employee at the rehab facility who was checking to see if he was okay. He ran off. And amid the chaos, employees at the facility called 911 and secured the building. Once deputies arrived on scene and located Calicutty on the property, an exchange of gunfire took place. Deputy Michael Davis was struck by a bullet. He has since recovered from his injuries. It remains unclear why Calicutty was trying to get into the building. The sheriff's office said he had no connection to the nursing home. Representatives with the city of Bradenton and Manatee County Sheriff's Office spoke at the reception. It says there is not a worse call you can receive in the middle of the night or any time when you're told that someone from your family has shot, Sheriff Rick Wells said. The sheriff went on to say that the actions of the two employees at Aspire deserve special recognition. Sam Lloyd and Alexa Jackson came face to face with the armed suspect shortly after he slammed through the front entrance. Sam, Alexa, because of your actions, there is no doubt that you saved lives. This man was intent to come in here and to kill, and because of your quick actions, you prevented that. Even after taking a shot, you were able to have the presence of mind to go in and lock those doors and make sure that everyone was protected. Both the sheriff's office and management with Aspire Health Group presented the employees with plaques to honor their actions. Lloyd, who served 20 years in the U.S. Army, said he wasn't trying to be a hero. He said he was just in the right place at the right time and was thankful to have served as a deterrent to keep the suspect out. My only thought was not to let him in the building. That was my only thought. I wasn't trying to be a hero or anything. I just wanted to make sure he didn't get in to harm any of the patients or other staff members. Lloyd said it was an emotional experience to reunite with law enforcement who responded to the facility. So to me, they are the heroes because they came and they actually knew what they were going into. They knew that they were going into an active shooter situation and just ran to where I told him he was. They found him, exchanged a few rounds with him and everything to make sure the patients and the staff in this building were safe and secure, which they did an excellent job. For the safety of patients and staff, management at the facility announced that they're looking into allowing employees to carry guns on the property. We believe in property training and proper use of force, said a member of management during the reception. Discussions are still underway as to what the new policy would look like. So I'm very grateful that those staff members were not injured and that they were able to prevent him from getting in. Again, it goes to the safety that I'm looking at, and some of our most vulnerable people are sometimes not as safe, and we have no reason to know why this gentleman was trying to get in. We have no idea. All right, and here's our next story for a nurse making a difference. And I want to share this. It says, nurses care, dedication to snowed-in client recognized. This is coming from, I believe it's nurse.org. Is it really as good as they say? Years removed from a nursing role at a clinic, Taylor Wimmer walked into Good Samaritan Society home care in Indianola, Iowa, and asked a question. Never did home health until I got here, said Wimmer, who was getting back into nursing after raising her two girls to school age. Wimmer said she quickly figured out that this is where I belong. So she says taking her role as a home health caregiver seriously for more than a year, the licensed practical nurse spends her day on the road traveling dozens of miles to clients, spending time with the people where they live. Wimmer prioritizes building relationships with those she serves. So sometimes it's easier said than done. Last winter, one of Wimmer's clients was snowed in after several days of severe weather. Located out in the country, the house is often the last to see a plow. It had been over 5 days, and she was concerned that the client was not able to get any personal care services and the nursing services that week. The person lived on their own, and Whitmer remembers it was a scary situation. With no access for society staff or emergency services for that matter, Whitmer took the matters into her own hands. Fortunately, her husband's truck had a plow blade. Talked him into helping me out to plow. Whitmer says, about the two clearing the client's road and driveway. I knew the client needed us. They needed to be able to have somebody to get to them. Good adds now she probably would have done it by hand if she needed, just to make sure the patient was safe. These efforts were just part of the reason why Whitmer is being named as the Good Samaritan Society's National Ever For Caregiver Champion. She's an everyday, genuine person and our superhero in disguise, Klein said. We coined her a Wonder Whitmer. So I just want to say congratulations to Nurse Whitmer and on your award. And she is our nurse making a difference as well for the rest of the day. All right. That ends our news segment for today. I want to thank you for tuning in. Some quick announcements. As you saw, we have our new promotion for our CPR classes. And so I wanted to say, if you're a nursing student or a teacher out there and we're getting ready to get back to school, this is a great time to get your CPR training. If you're in the lay public and you've always wanted to learn how to do CPR because you want to be able to take care of your family or act in emergency, we have classes available. Just head over to Baxter Professional Services Health Education.com. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you are watching this on our YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell and join us for our other shows, the Nurse Shark Academy show, where we interview nurse business owners and leaders. And so I appreciate you. We're a little over our time today, so I just wanted to say goodbye and thanks so much, and I'll see you next week.